Hi everyone, thank you for joining us in this final session of our webinar series for 2025. For the past 2 months, we've had some great conversations around data analytics, data value assurance, and importantly, how organizations are turning these capabilities into real measurable business value. My name is Julien Redmond. I'm joined here today by Zjaen Coetzee, I think I said that right, CTO and CEO designate of Nexus Data. So thanks for joining us on. So today's session is intentionally a bit different. I think we're going to, instead of doing the technical deep dive that you've done with the team over the last couple of months, we're going to take some time to reflect on some of the lessons that we've learned through 2025, what worked, what didn't, and importantly, I think what leaders should be carrying into 2026. I also want to chat about the reception to your book, Zjaen. Rapid value cycle and data value assurance. That's it's been quite impressive that you got the book out and had such a great reception. And I think how some of the lessons from the book have been applied to our project at Resimac, and we have a great case study together with Resimac. So I want to have a chat about that. I'm going to talk a little bit about Iris and how that fits into that, and I think we'll close it out with some trends. What we're seeing in the market, and I guess how we think those trends are going to shape people's approach to data, AI, and analytics, and really extracting value out of their data, which obviously is all about what you talk about in Rapid. So I think that's probably the right plan. We want to leave people maybe with a practical summary of what they can do and how they can go forward with a sense of confidence for the rest of the year. But let's maybe start with a high level reflection. So when you look back on 2025, what stands out for you most in terms of what organisations are thinking about data and value?
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Julien. Yeah, it's this. I'm going to try and keep this one short because this feels like one of those big answers that needs to be
Go
tried
forever.
back. But what I've really seen, and I mean, we yesterday we had this reflection about just sort of looking at when we started with the rapid value cycle all the way through to where we are now. And because of this, we became a whole lot more aware around how customers are focusing on value as a concept and how they're applying that within the organizations. So when I look back at 2025, I think the thing that stood out most for me is that many organizations are now looking at either adopting or increasing the data analytics spend and landscape, but they're doing it a whole lot more cautiously. They're asking the questions around what value can I expect from this? Where should I be investing? And if I invest, am I actually ready to get the value from these investments at the end of the day? Which I think means is there's sort of the shift where people realize data analytics on its own doesn't create any value. It takes multiple people within the business working together, and it's been quite consistent across multiple sectors, industries, even with companies, even in the same sector where the maturity has differed. It seems to be a fairly common trend across all these companies. Is value is becoming something that people are talking about, which is good, because the other thing that people were talking about quite a lot and that there's been a lot of focus on is the failure rate of AI investments, and the failure to deliver any business value, and people seemingly burning through cash very quickly.
Yeah,
So
sure.
so off the back of that, Julien, if we look at sort of these trends that we saw in 2025, and I think specifically the big one was the MIT report that came out that said 95% of all projects fail, and they fail to deliver value.
Yeah.
What do you think? What were the biggest shifts you saw in how organizations approach data and AI in 2025?
Yeah, well, I guess maybe the slight difference between our organisations is you guys are a little bit more probably focused on the strategic end, and we're a
Mm,
little bit focused on the data platform. But obviously, there's
mm,
lots of overlap. So for me, what I've seen is people really trying to look for incremental value. So not trying to bite off too big a chunk,
mm,
and tie directly the delivery of of a data product or a data asset to an actual value output. And so often that means doing a lot more smaller, kind of, I guess, agile is a good word for it, but
Mm.
not agile in the sense of the product the project delivery methodology bit, but being agile, uh, being incremental, delivering multiple things regularly. So delivering stuff on one sprint from data acquisition to actual analytics, and you're not. I guess the value there is that you're regularly able to check the
Mm.
value of what the team's doing. You're not waiting months for an output and then going, well, that didn't, we just wasted $100,000 and we didn't get what we expected. So
Yeah.
I think we're seeing that as being a really common topic when we're talking about data platforms is, how can this actually help us be more agile and more incremental in our delivery?
Mm.
All right. So from your perspective, you see lots of organizations, doing these sorts of projects. So where are people getting it right and where are people still struggling?
Yeah, I think so. And I think similar to your question, to your answer, Julian. So where you guys are focusing more on the platform side and enablement and the stuff around it. If we look at it from a Nexus Data perspective and the consultancy stuff we do, so we typically also work with customers where they're either on this journey where they've made the investment or planning this investment on their platform,
Yeah,
and where we're seeing success is where they think about this a bit deeper than just I want a platform because it's going to enable X, Y, and Z.
yeah,
They are seeing it as an ecosystem towards creating value. So in the organizations, and this makes it easier for them to justify the investment because now if they plan, they're going to spend a couple of $1 million on a platform, they know outright that these are the things in business that I'm going to solve for, which is going to translate to this value, and that value will either then be determinate or indeterminate, which means that you're either going to measure it from a dollar and a cents perspective, or it's going to be certain things that you will need as fundamental building blocks. So we're seeing a lot of success in companies that's going down that route where they have a bit more sustainability around the investments. So they don't just invest and 6 months later or 12 months later they pull the investment. They're in it for the
yeah,
long haul because they made the commitment. Where we see companies still struggling is where they get caught up in the hype a bit. And I mean it's the one thing that still gets under my skin after all these years, and I'm trying to not let it affect me. But it's you always see these LinkedIn posts or articles about should you go with data mesh or data fabric or whatever it might be. And the bigger scheme of things, it's irrelevant. It's you need to find the thing that's going to work the best for your organization. And the problem is companies get caught up in the hype and they keep making mistakes and making investment without having a clear plan. So really moving away from experimentation to accountability is where we see success. We're seeing a lot of increased pressure from the CFO and the boards to say, well, we want to see ROI, and you're not really
mm,
presenting it. Where we've seen companies focusing on that ROI a bit more, we've seen a bit more success. And I think also the one big thing is the clear gap between technology capability and value realization. The fact that the technology is great and amazing and really capable, if you haven't really thought this through and made the commitment
yeah,
to really invest in this, and this is not just paying for the platform, making sure that you've got the right people, the right skills, you make business people available as part of this journey, you're more than likely going to fail. And this is what we've seen, over the last couple of months, is those ones that win a bit more intentional, focused on value. Those ones that lose are still the ones focusing on technology capability predominantly.
yeah. I always think about, you can buy a Ferrari, but then back into a wall. So
Yeah,
it doesn't matter
right.
about how good the tool is if you don't know how to use it. So when
Yeah.
you wrote the book, drive rapid results from data, what was the core problem you were actually trying to solve? And then it's been out for a while now, so I'm interested in what sort of feedback
Mm.
you've had from execs and practitioners and stuff as the years gone on.
Yeah, and it's interesting how these two worlds have now blended. So when we started out Rapid the first time, we did 11 drafts of this, by the way. So the first one it wasn't on the money. We had to
Ooh,
had to rewrite a few times, but the
better to use than
initial
me then.
focus
Yeah,
was yeah, yeah. So the first one was really a focus around we've identified the problems. The problems was we saw this cycle where your data leaders don't last for longer than 18 months, and when they do exit, they then tend to
yeah,
exit that space completely. So we had people giving up massive roles at large institutions to go and farm. They just wanted to get away from data altogether. They're really not interested in continuing with journey in that career because it feels like a zero-sum game. And we
Yeah.
try to identify
Yeah.
what are sort of the core issues as to why this is happening, and this is sort of where we got the rapid components. When we wrote the final version of the book, and the book that's now available, it's really for the C-suite to help them understand data in a broader spectrum, in a broader sense, to make it more accessible, to help create data confidence.
Mm.
And the focus there really was is we're trying to solve the problem at that level to make sure that the data leaders now get the support that they needed from the rest of the senior management teams or the rest of the teams as well. On the flip side is the feedback that we got from most of the executives and people that's currently using the methodology to implement it is they've seen a shift in their own focus because they didn't necessarily realize how complex the world of data is. And now that they're a bit more aware of these things, they're able to focus on things a bit more intentionally, like the age-old thing about data quality and governance and those type of things that people try to ignore plays a massive role in success at the end of the day. So we've seen that quite well. The reception around value and the value conversation has been really good. We have it. This is the nice thing about this. We now have our customers, presenting to their exco teams and other teams as well. Even the data teams taking it upon themselves to now communicate and use our language. So they talk about data confidence. They're talking about value generating initiatives. We even see some of our customers selling our product or our solution to other customers with extreme amounts of confidence because
Right.
I won't say they drank the Kool-Aid, but they bought into the framework, and they've
Yep.
seen success of it from themselves. And I think that's really, when we wrote the book, the whole idea was to make it easily and accessible for people to take stuff and to solve problems on their own. And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so far so good. But the biggest one that stood out was just people didn't understand or didn't really think about the context of data value, which was quite obvious. I think it's been around for many years. I think it's just
Yeah.
resurfacing it was good.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really hard role if you're a data leader because you've got all the accountability without much ability to actually enforce change or make change in a business. So it's not a comfortable role to sit in, I'm sure. So you talk a lot in the book around the data value assurance. Is that changing the way that organisations are thinking about their investment? Then are you
Yeah.
seeing that?
Yeah, so the interesting thing is our focus was data value assurance, which in essence was whatever you invest in, somebody needs to assure that you're going to get that value and make sure that you actually get it at the end of the day. It's sort of shifted now beyond that, where people said, but now I want to do this for IT and other initiatives as well. And we said it's great, but maybe just start with the data first. So we've seen
Mm,
that the concept of data value assurance, although it's in practice it's a bit difficult to apply it because there's some complexities around it, but the general idea around it is fairly simplistic, and this lands
mm,
very well with customers. And we've now seen this across retail and banking and various other sectors where customers are really embracing it and owning it and taking it upon themselves to almost apply their own flavor of what this looks like. So we have some customers that have now actually created the data value offices where they're focusing specifically on value and tracking the value across their organizations. We have some customers that's just using the context of data value assurance to prioritize their business initiatives and subsequently the data and AI investments as well. So it's really
yeah.
started to shift the focus from I just want technology, I just want to solve a problem, to whatever I'm doing, I need to have an output and an outcome for it. And the nice thing is, because of this, they've also now moved away from I'm just doing things for the sake of doing it to actually measuring things continuously within the organizations. And this we've seen across industries, across various stages of analytics journeys, because you have some people that's just starting out, and then you have some people that's been on this journey for quite a while, and
Mm,
and they're trying to do something better. And funnily enough, you have some people that's been at this for 15 years and only now starting
yeah.
to focus on, well, maybe I should measure the value from these investments. So when the CFO comes knocking, I actually don't have to run away in fear, and I can give a confident answer as to what I'm expecting at the end of the day. So
Yeah.
and I think we've had the privilege, Julien, between ourselves and yourselves over the last year to work on many customer engagements,
Yep.
and sort of uh, share each other's projects and frameworks and stuff with the respective customers. From a Resimac perspective, what made what make the Resimac engagement different from the typical data analytics initiatives that you guys typically do?
Yeah, I mean, in a way, it was a typical start to a project for us in that they had a legacy platform that was not living up to what they needed, for managerial reporting, for compliance reporting, the types of things that you just know you have to have, and the
Mm,
business case for those is pretty solid. But they had an idea that they wanted to do other things as well, and so it was really how do we put in a platform that would have uh, capability and flexibility to take on things that were unknown at the time. And so Launchpad being our framework for modern lake houses was valuable because it had a lot of those features that we could roll out that were there. So that was kind of how it started, I guess. Where it evolved to, and Stephen talks about this in the interview I did with him, which is on our website. Is early on they actually purchased a business and needed to essentially bring that in quickly, and that had huge business value.
mm,
The I guess it was probably a fairly easy calculation for them on the business value side, because if they could bring all of that business into their business
mm,
and integrate it, then they're on the right footing. And if they couldn't, it would be extremely challenging. So it started normally, and then it's evolved to being a core platform for them that they're looking for ways to do a lot more with.
mm. Okay. And I mean, it's in terms of this journey, at which point or where did value become visible, not just technically, but also commercially from the work that you guys have done?
Yeah, I mean, like I try and steer our projects away from we will move you to new technology X
Mm,
from Y, and replicate what you have, because in that scenario there's very little value to the business. They're getting what they have already, and the back end technology has changed, and they're like, well, we just spent a lot of money and we're still using the
mm,
same report or the same analytics. And so we focused a lot on what's the incremental value. And so we try and we we take that view of incremental development and regular delivery to the business, and we try and understand the value of each piece of delivery.
mm,
What is this going to do for the business? And we use that to help prioritize what should go first. So there's regular visibility of the value of what the platform that Resimac has. But the biggest one was that acquisition, because
mm,
obviously, when they were able to purchase this business, they had a set time frame. They had, because they're in the financial sector, they had, a lot of compliance. If you're bringing in business, then you need to make sure that you don't lose any sense along the way. So yeah, we could quite easily show the value of the platform,
mm,
and so it is a little bit of that. Well, the technology is going to enable something, and there is this huge project that got stood up, and it wasn't just
mm.
data movement. Obviously,
Yeah.
they're bringing in another business. They need to change lots of their business to cope. What we had to do was make sure that we didn't delay the rest of the project. We didn't cause errors, or uh, mess with processes that were being put in place to absorb this new business.
Mm,
So yeah, it's a really good example of how, if you do it right,
mm,
then it should just allow the rest of the business to do what they need to do, because we were a fraction of that project overall.
yeah.
And luckily, well, not luckily, because obviously there was a hell of a lot of effort that went into it, but
Mm,
the data movement and migration happened faster than expected. We had zero defects. The team did a great job, and the
mm,
testing was top notch, and so everyone was prepared, and so that's the perfect outcome, when no one even notices that
yeah.
kind of that it happened, and everything just flowed. So That was
Yeah,
good.
that's awesome. And I think it's one of the, it's something that I know that, obviously keeps our team awake at night, because it's the hours that they're working is the Australian hours, but they really enjoy, the efforts and the stuff that they're putting in. And I think this is also, almost like an unplanned benefit of having that value focus, is because the teams working on the project now buy into, they can see that the customer is really working towards something, and they can see the impact that it is making at the end of the day. um so
Yeah,
Julian,
yeah,
one of the other things that we wanted to discuss today, obviously it's one of the other things that's in the realm of ignition, and that you guys have
yep,
been hard at work at putting together and sort of scaling is Iris.
yeah.
From an Iris perspective, what problem does Iris solve that data teams and organizations struggled with before, and what can we look forward to from Iris in the new year?
Yeah, I mean it's core to that whole message about incremental delivery for us. So,
Mm,
here at Resimac we have a lake house, built on Snowflake, using some of the Azure tools, and they use Iris to generate all of the code for that silver layer for the data. Essentially, the way we look at a lake house, with a medallion architecture, is that middle layer is for data integration, for
mm,
mapping, merging, cleansing, conforming, all, deduplication, all of the things that you need to do in a data management platform, including integration of silos of data. And so
mm,
Iris just produces code. But the way it does it is it it essentially allows you to do very thin slices. So we could do a single table or a handful of tables a day, and we're only bringing in the data that is required for that that day's output, for the report that's trying to be built or the analytics that's trying to be delivered. So it keeps your team agile and keeps that focus on value delivery, rather than having to do a large enterprise modeling project and a large ETL project and building an enterprise platform. No one wants to do that stuff. So we allow the team to effectively grow the data model in that silver layer, incrementally over time. It kind of organically grows to the data vault patterns, and then Iris just makes that possible with
mm,
automation, so that it just makes it effectively has simplified the process of using data vault in a lakehouse, so that a lot more people can actually take care of that work, and
mm,
people can get focused on the things that actually add real value, the analytics that the business is trying to implement. And um, and I think it's critical in that fast, regular delivery,
mm.
and which is how we tie things to value. I think that's where your philosophy and our philosophy line up really
Mm,
well. Is we want
yeah.
to do stuff regularly, so that we're not spending thousands of dollars before the business has something in their hands and can say,
Mm,
actually, that doesn't suit my purpose. I need
yep.
to see it in a different way. So,
Yep.
so it's been really good. It's being well received. It's doing great work at
Mm,
Resimac, and
mm,
we've got interest and partners popping up everywhere. So it's an exciting thing, I think, for us for
mm.
next year.
Awesome. No, I'm looking forward to it. I think there's going to be Iris everywhere.
Yeah,
There's a big need for it in the market. So I think it's, if people are ready for it, they need to go and check it out, or reach out to you guys
yeah,
to actually play around with it.
yeah, I
Julian,
appreciate
thanks for sharing these insights with us, and for your partnership in the last year. I think, jointly we've managed to accomplish quite a lot. I think even the last couple of months and weeks, that we've spent on unpacking the rapid value cycle from the webinar perspective, gave
it.
gave a lot of insights both ways, and I think this builds a strong foundation for just some of the things that we're also planning in the new year.
Yeah.
If we're getting now to the interesting point where we want to sort of leave the audience with interesting insights.
Mm,
So,
yeah.
what do you think, in your opinion, what are the three trends that you think will define 2026 based on what you've seen in the last year?
Yeah, this is probably the question I've been dreading most, to be honest. It's a crystal ball. I mean, AI's got to be in the mix. Like it's,
Yeah.
but how's it going to be in the mix? I think is a little bit unknown still. We're definitely going to see, more AI delivered into the data
Mm,
platforms and tools that we use. And so, as you said, the tools get better, but you can still back a Ferrari into a wall. So
mm,
it. it's not going to solve every problem. And so I think it's also going to represent challenges for us. Like as you said, 95% of AI solutions are getting built and then tossed in the bin. And I think
Mm,
things like access control and privacy and all of those sorts of things need to be really well worked out
mm,
before people are pushing AI solutions into production. So I think that's probably, data privacy and security is probably one of the other big trends we'll see in the back end. And I'm going to
mm.
focus on the back end, but that's more our field, and I'll let you kind of focus
Yep.
more on the value side. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
and so I think those things, and then automation everywhere. So things should be a lot faster, and people should expect the data team and the data platform
Mm,
to react at the speed that the business wants to change, rather
yes.
than the business having to wait for the data teams to catch up. And I
Mm,
think we'll see a lot more demand of that from the business. I think that people are far more savvy now around what happens with data, and than they were, 10 years ago. The data team was some magic bunch of people
mm,
that sat, in the dungeon and did things, and you had to wait till they were finished before you could do anything. And not now. There's an understanding of, data movement and data transformation, and and how, what the
mm.
response time, and how things should be accessed. So, but yeah, more than anything, I think just with the way that everything's evolving, that security, governance, privacy, all of that stuff
Mm.
is going to be a big topic, because the impacts to business if you get that wrong are going to be pretty large. So, what about
Yep.
you? What trends have you observed this year, and what's going to change in 2026?
Yeah, I want to latch on to a bit of yours. I think the fact that a lot of people are becoming more aware of data. I had a customer where one board member asked us, "It's all great and while you're doing this data strategy, but where does data labeling fit in?" So it's sometimes people know just enough to be dangerous. Still, like you said, back a Ferrari into a wall. But I think
Yeah,
in the last I've observed quite a lot of people talking about data a bit more. I think a lot of people becoming a bit more aware around what that means. People seeing the impact of it. I think and this latches onto your security stuff as well, with all the breaches that we've seen. We've had some customers also impacted by this quite significantly, and it's data related stuff. It's people taking your data away and your business comes to a complete halt and a standstill. So I think there's
yeah,
there's there's a lot of awareness around what data can actually do and the risk of not looking after your data, that I've witnessed
mm,
in the last year. So I think for 2026, like you said, I think the AI thing is a bit of a crystal ball. There's people talking about the AI bubble that's going to pop, but on the other
yeah,
side, you see people putting it into everything that they're doing. I think we won't necessarily have a winner in the AI race, I guess, in the next year. But I think there would typically be somebody that stands out above the rest, that will probably focus on the value component, and that's probably going to be the person or the individual or the, let's call it, company that's going to lead the race there. So I think the concept of data value assurance becoming non-negotiable. I think companies
yeah,
are strapping their belts very tight around where they invest, because the
yeah,
world has become highly competitive. Even the people that have got deep pockets are looking at protecting what they have so they can continuously invest in the right things and build sustainable businesses. um, I think there's also this view of the CFOs and finances playing a bit of a bigger role in data analytics and the decisions that gets made there. It's almost bringing
mm,
those worlds a bit closer together. Um, yeah, and I think then the last thought is this increased urgency for organizations to start leveraging data. If there's companies that haven't done it yet, or people that are busy exploring it, I think there's going to be a big urgency around people really focusing on making sure that they have the right information about what customers to serve, what products do they need to package, at what price points do they need to make it available from an insights perspective, but also internally helping them shape what they do as an organization to their customers. I think that it's the things that we've been talking about for years, where we said data is important and people need to focus on data. I think the
yeah,
tire is finally hitting the road, where hopefully people are not backing Ferraris into walls, but I think that there's a bit more urgency and a bit more intentionality around data. So that's my expectation for 2026, is seeing a
yeah,
lot more companies with success stories around the investments that they've made, and really turning and steering the ship in a different direction. Specifically, I'm looking forward to large organizations leveraging data to make a significant impact where they've been struggling for years to do something. And I think maybe as a closing thought that I want to then leave everyone with before I hand back over to you, Julien, is just this question to everyone that's listening or that's watching this is, as you head into 2026, where do you need more confidence? Is it in your data? Is it in your decisions or in your delivery? Because once you understand where your lack of confidence is, or sometimes naivety sits, you can really focus and zone in on those, and that can help you towards realizing value, making better decisions, and obviously when you're bringing in partners like yourselves to build data platforms, that they know it's the right investment, and that jointly that there can be good success from those initiatives. Thanks, Julien.
Yeah, no, what a great message. And I think I wholly endorse everything you just said. So because we close this out, and, I want to thank everyone who's actually joined this webinar series over the last few months. It's been a great collaboration, and I'm sure we'll do something similar in the new year. But I think through these sessions, we've been quite clear that there's no organisation that's short on technology now, nor a whole set of goals and ambitions that they're trying to chase. But as you were just saying, they might lack confidence in their decisions or their investments or how they actually achieve value out of that. So I think they should definitely be looking at the rapid value cycle and data value assurance that you described through the book. I think that's some really valuable lessons in that. And then look to things like case studies that we have with ResiMap, where it shows that if you follow that kind of approach, you can actually make a change to your business. Value doesn't come from analytics or AI on their own. It comes from alignment and discipline. The ability to connect those insights and actions to the business. And that finance team can trust, and the whole. Everything has to come together, as we were saying, before. So, I think as you get into 2026, it's pretty simple. We'd encourage you to, start your conversations about value first, and be really deliberate about what you're trying to achieve, and make sure that you measure it, and build with confidence. And I think, obviously speaking for our organisations, engage someone that you trust to actually walk you through the process, and who understands value and understands data, because without those two pieces of the puzzle, you're in a really you're in a tough spot. But there are pathways through. So I guess on behalf of Ignition, and thank you to Nexus Data for such a great partnership. I want to thank you for being part of our journey. And obviously the audience that's listening, to being part of the journey of this webinar series. And we're going to continue this conversation, obviously, as we get into the new year. But we want to thank everyone. I'm sure you agree. We want to thank everyone for tuning in, and stay value focused all the way through 2026.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.